Welcome back, I'm the Book Guy, and today we're going to talk about Dungeon Crawler Carl because everyone else is. Yeah, the hype around this series is insane and we need to address it straight out of the gate. Dungeon Crawler Carl is everywhere right now. And I get it. Now that I've read all 7 books, I can confidently say that I adore Dungeon Crawler Carl. In fact, my friends and family were ready to stage an intervention because I talked about it so much. My video editor, Nix, was literally like, shut the f*** up about Dungeon Crawler Carl. That's a verbatim quote, by the way.
Can confirm that this is accurate.
But I think we've reached a point as a community where the hype for these books has grown out of control and has become its own sentient, self-sustaining beast where now people are not reading the books and reacting to the books, they're reacting to the hype. It did not live up to the hype. No, it absolutely did live up to the hype. Guys, seriously? Forget about the hype. This series is incredible, but it's going to land very well for some people and not so much for others. My goal today is to give you an objective, well-balanced introduction to the series so you can make up your own minds for yourself if you want to try the 7 books so far. Now, let's overview this thing. Aliens have taken over Earth and the survivors have to fight through a dungeon for the entertainment of all galactic citizens. There's heaps of weird, absurdist, funny things inside this dungeon, like talking cats and a guy in his underpants. Yet it has tons of dark humor too, and offers satire on people suffering for our entertainment and many other deeper themes too. At its core, the series is a lit RPG where the story is playing through a game, so there's lots of Dungeons and Dragons stats, spells, items, quests, and leveling up through the dungeon. Yet despite all of these different genres mashing together, it is still fundamentally grounded on our characters and their fight for survival. So it's a perfect genre hybrid that combines all of these stories and dials them up to 11.
These go to 11.
So that's going to work well for a lot of you, and others might find it very, very weird. So let's dive deeper into the series. We're going to look at some strengths, some weaknesses. We're going to do it completely spoiler-free, and we'll see if Dungeon Crawler Carl is going to be right for you. The cat got out at 2 a.m. in the morning and Carl chases her through the snow while wearing only his boxers. It's at this exact moment when the world ends. Every human structure is erased, and the entrances to the dungeon open up all over the world. To avoid freezing to death in the snow, Carl ventures inside, cuddling his girlfriend's cat, Donut.
It's like the cutest thing ever.
The dungeon is a sadistic labyrinth, 18 levels deep and big enough to surround the whole Earth. It's filled with traps, monsters, magical loot, NPCs, and other desperate crawlers who will do anything to survive. There's a time limit for every level, and if you die, it's permanent.
Not ideal, no.
But most importantly in this dungeon, it's not the strong who survive, it's the popular. Those who fight the coolest fights and kill with style will gain the biggest audience. Because this is all for the amusement of the wider galaxy and the profit of the mysterious forces who run the crawl.
We are tonight's entertainment.
Yet as Carl fights through one merciless and cruel battle after another, he begins to utter one mantra above all others. You will not break me. I will break you.
Oh, hot. Yeah, right. That's hot.
So first of all, this is a subgenre of fantasy called LitRPG. I know there's plenty of YouTube content already explaining this emerging genre, but let me just say it again for the newbies who know nothing about it. So RPG stands for role-playing game. It also stands for rocket-propelled grenade, but that's not important right now. Role-playing games are when you become a character and play through a story. So in the video game world, it's not just Mario jumping and grabbing coins, it's a game where you interact with the story. You are a character and your choices have consequences. So think like Baldur's Gate, Red Dead Redemption, Elder Scrolls, that sort of thing.
Hey, you're finally awake.
Now you have tabletop RPG, which is like Dungeons and Dragons. You create a character and play through a story. And that brings us to lit RPG. It's the same thing in the form of literature. You read about a main character who plays their way through a game. This is the simple version. So Dungeon Crawler Carl has a lot of game mechanics. Our crawlers need to fight a battle to gain experience and level up their stats to survive. They have all the usual D&D stats like Constitution, Strength, and Charisma. They also collect items and unlock powerful spells with cooldown times and hard rules.
There's so much more.
I would argue that this is a hard magic system. In fact, it might just be the hardest magic... No, I don't like that. The most hard, that was worse. It's a very detailed magic system. So everything in this world is like the ultimate Chekhov's gun. I'm not even exaggerating. Every single spell and item has to come back and be useful. Remember, our characters are desperate. They are fighting for survival, so they don't just wave a magic wand or punch really hard to win. They have to be clever and resourceful, making use of every single little advantage they can get.
What's that do?
This means that every small piece of gameplay comes into effect. There's no wasted effort, every detail is relevant, it's bloody brilliant. Best of all, our characters need to look for ways to break the rules. Exploit glitches in the game. You ever watch professional speedrunners who play a game and just break the physics itself? Yeah, I mean, why play the sadistic dungeon game if you can break it in very creative, clever ways?
I won't break you unless you deserve to be broken.
That said, all of these game rules and mechanics can be pretty damn extensive at times. Especially as the series goes on, the dungeon crawl rules grow increasingly complex and hard to track. We'll come back to that. What really makes this series feel like a game is the interface and the AI. No, not that AI. Every player can see icons floating above people and items in the dungeon, and they can click on it to get information. However, the AI who gives this information is a weird guy. Sadistic and unhinged and wildly unpredictable.
He's my kind of guy.
Although the AI does give achievements and rewards, so that kind of means it's a little helpful, right? It's worth noting here that I don't personally read LitRPG, it's not my thing, but I've seen a lot of people who do read that genre frequently say that Dungeon Crawler Carl is pretty standard, it's nothing that special. But I think Dungeon Crawler Carl is making waves in the book community largely because it is popularizing a previously obscure subgenre. For many of us more traditional fantasy and sci-fi readers, this will be our introduction to LitRPG, so I think that's one of the reasons for the novelty. It's a largely new genre. The world building in this series is nuts. It was genuinely really hard to pin it down and try to define it because it's multiple genres. So let's break it down by genre. We have 4 types of world building. We have alien culture, bastardized Earth culture, fantasy elements, and the dungeon itself. And you'll notice that each of these represent a different genre: sci-fi, urban sci-fi, fantasy, and lit RPG. So yes, this story is a hybrid of genre. It is genuinely fantastic. Anything goes, anything's possible. That's half the reason the series is so fun. So first, the alien culture is all about the people behind the dungeon crawl and the destruction of Earth. This is a totally unique sci-fi world created especially for this series. There is a huge galactic community of different worlds, governments and rulers, different alien species, and different corporations. The greater world outside the dungeon is simply huge, but best of all, we hardly see it. After all of our characters are basically abducted and thrown into this fight for survival with little to no information. They don't know what's going on, so we get such small glimpses about this wider alien world, one little piece at the time. The world is revealed so slowly it's tantalizing.
This place is amazing!
And yet this alien world is a pretty messed up place. After all, what type of community would make people fight to death for entertainment?
It's more fun this way.
Secondly, we have the bastardized Earth culture. The idea is that the aliens incorporate the local world into the dungeon itself. So the aliens have shoved pop culture references and mythological references into the dungeon, but they're all kind of racist.
What did you say?
They depict Earth in the worst possible way and use a lot of offensive stereotypes, because they're mocking us. They destroyed Earth and basically enslaved everyone else, and now they're poking fun of our way of life. So don't worry, these books are not going to hit you over the head constantly with pop culture references.
I do not want another single pop culture reference out of you for the rest of the trip.
Every time there is a pop culture reference in the series, it's been altered in some creative and malicious and unflattering way. It's a parody and a farce.
So is that you really
fail.
That's why there's so much dark humor in these books, which we'll talk about later. So third world building technique is we have the fantasy elements. So that's where the dungeon is filled with all sorts of common D&D creatures, like the goblins, the elves, the orcs, the gods, and the fairies, etc. There are spells and magic. There's crawlers who have to store up mana for big spells. There's just all kinds of fantasy stuff that overlap with the sci-fi elements too. And fourth is the dungeon itself. And I put this in its own category because it changes so often. Remember, there are 18 levels to this dungeon, and each one is different. So our crawlers get to another level with dread and think, oh god, what weird shit is going to happen this time.
What is this new devilry?
Each level is a new setting with a new gimmick, and the characters have to figure it out quickly before they're killed by it.
Let's do this.
So I wholeheartedly believe this is one of the reasons why Dungeon Crawler Carl has been so popular, because it's got all the genres. There's something for everyone, and there's plenty of new things even for people who already consume a lot of SFF content. Overall, this is such a fresh combination of so many different ideas, although you may be wondering, is this too many ideas?
Whatever happened to the concept of less is more?
But if less is more, then just think how much more and more will be.
But in all seriousness, I also think that this is why some people read Dungeon Crawler Carl and don't get the hype, because the genre mashup is pretty weird. It's an out there concept. It's so many different things happening at once, so I'll freely admit this won't work for everyone. You'll have to decide for yourself if you want to indulge in this smorgasbord of ideas. Just remember, it's a feature, not a bug. It's supposed to be a weird story with all the genres.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
Now, all of this various world building might be very busy, but this is still a story with plenty of character and deeper meaning. This series is literally the definition of satire, the use of humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule to expose and criticize people's stupidity or vices. Everything in the dungeon world is an exaggeration and an absurdity. It's brilliant. You can read so many layers of meaning into this if you choose. Because yes, the story is making a point, yet the point is so beautifully understated. The story never ever stops and looks directly at the camera and starts preaching at you.
Shut up, fourth wall.
I mean, could you imagine 7 books of capitalism is bad? I mean, even Karl Marx would get pretty sick of that one eventually. Anyway, but seriously, Dungeon Crawler Carl is literally a masterpiece of satire. It never explains the meaning behind its absurdity because it doesn't have to. The events are clearly significant on its own. Then the story backs off and lets the reader interpret it.
I love that.
I love this because there is a common difficulty in writing themes into a story. If you make the themes too obvious, people will say you're preaching. If you go too subtle, people will miss the themes entirely and then review bomb the book for being too shallow when the real problem was their media literacy. Anyway, the point being, I wish more authors would write theme like this, because it's not just trust the audience, it's more like make the point speak for itself so that you don't have to resort to such direct exposition.
If you have to explain it, it's just not funny.
So what themes does the satire actually touch on? Well, I really love the use of the rare political terms. We barely get a specific political term, but when it appears, it helps to frame the narrative. It's like name dropping. One person refers to the crawlers as being indigenous. Carl refers to himself as being a slave. The word imperialist shows up once or twice. So these labels are so rare, but they provoke the reader to consider the story in that light. Or sometimes they don't use labels at all. A character might do an evil monologue and I'm like, oh, that's textbook fascism. But they haven't used that label.
Not really into labels.
I think this works so well largely because of Carl himself. Our protagonist has very little political literacy. If politics comes up, he's just like, whatever, let's get back to the life and death situation, please. It's so good. It's like he's deliberately trying to skip the cutscene whenever themes come up.
I wish we could skip this part.
A major theme in the series is exploitation. Earth has been conquered and our crawlers are being exploited for profit and entertainment. Even their deaths serve the mysterious overlords. So how do you even fight back against a system you're trapped within? Do you just obey your overlords and work really hard within the system and hope for mercy? Do you organize, unite, or just resort to anarchy?
The last one.
Another major theme is legal rights. Oh, I love this theme so much because the crawlers inherently have some legal rights given to them by the galactic government, but they're total bullshit.
Did not see that coming.
You get a lawyer. Congratulations. Okay, great, but I'm still actively being murdered. And the crawlers are just expected to be grateful. Like, the sheer absurdity of it is incredible. One example is that humans are not forced to go into the dungeon. Okay, sure, civilization has been fully eradicated and the earth is now a barren wasteland, so people will die to the elements if they don't go in. This type of hypocrisy shows up all the time in the galactic lore. Yes, it's legal, but it's also insane. It suggests that human rights don't work at all if they're only partial. Unless rights are adequate and comprehensive, they're functionally useless.
Are you taking notes?
Another theme is media and entertainment. This is very, very similar to the Hunger Games. These games are inherently political propaganda, and if the games go well, it reflects well on the sponsors and the investors. The viewers also see so much violence and death and suffering that they become completely numb to it all, even reveling in it. So do with that what you will.
May the odds be ever in your favor.
And one final theme I'll touch on is political incorrectness. Now, I don't think it's racist or sexist, but remember, the aliens misrepresent Earth culture, so there's a lot of irreverence. Like the character Uzi Jesus, a goofy version of Jesus, but with an Uzi. Or the TV show host Odetta, who has outrageously large boobs that are physically impossible and grotesque. Or the fact that Carl gains some popularity with viewers because he looks like an alpha male.
The regular alpha male!
Now, I've seen some negative reviews on the series for this reason. People complaining that the women might be sexualized and this is a man's fantasy. But that's the point. It's meant to be somewhat offensive because it's a satire and nothing is sacred in entertainment. Still, there's many ways you can interpret the themes in this book, and ultimately I want to leave it all up to you. Now, there's one other thing I almost need to warn you about. This series is just incredibly funny. I laughed out loud many, many times. It's a comedy series very much like Discworld or Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But it's also quite dark. Again, nothing is sacred. There are jokes about war crimes and atrocities and killing families and eradicating entire species. And there's lots of sexual jokes, innuendos and foot fetishes. Yep. It's good stuff.
I don't know if I'm excited or terrified.
But let's be honest, a lot of dark humor these days is just lazy writing, relying on the shock factor more than actual comedy. But this is good dark humor in good taste. It doesn't laugh at people suffering, instead, it laughs despite the suffering. It's smiling through the pain.
Textbook defense mechanism.
For one, the game's AI makes a lot of jokes. I found myself smiling in anticipation every time I heard new achievement, because I knew a dark joke was coming. These jokes were pretty sadistic. I also love how all the characters use a lot of gallows humor, laughing at their situation as an obvious coping mechanism. They laugh to show that they're still human. They laugh as an act of defiance, fighting to retain their sanity amidst all the craziness.
We're all gonna die!
Ultimately, I believe this series is full of hope. I mean, compare it to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. In that book, the Earth is destroyed, but it doesn't matter because the universe is so big and nothing matters anyway. But here the Earth is destroyed, and we are constantly aware that this is a goddamn tragedy. It's worth fighting back and trying to fix what's left of this situation. So the story has dark humor, yes, but it's not nihilistic, it's absurdism, which is what you get when you pass through nihilism out to the other side. I think humor in stories should ultimately serve the characters, show us who they are through their sense of humor, and make them relatable. That's exactly what this series does. Man, this series has some great character writing, and I need to just geek out / rant about it for a second.
I thought that's what you were doing before!
I have read so many books where the characters are in dangerous life and death situations, but the characters spend the whole story in serious mode, where they're just focused on the task at hand and are always being practical, and it's kinda boring. Think of it like actors who never show emotion. If the characters are emotionally flat-faced the entire time, how are we supposed to care about them? But this story has characters who are in constant danger and still has time for character development. Thank you. Because in stressful situations, characters like all of us start to crack under pressure. They have outbursts from stress, or they break down and cry, or they just joke around and be silly, because that's what people do in the face of despair. There is so much heart to this story. Now, our two main characters are Carl and his cat Donut. Sorry, Princess Donut.
Your Highness.
Yeah, slight spoiler for chapter 2, but Donut becomes a sentient character in a crawler. This dynamic duo start out very sunshine and rain clouds. Carl is the grumpy one, and Donut is the very happy and excitable one. But they get so much more development than just this starting place. Carl is famously only wearing his white boxer shorts with love hearts on them. His character is all straight lines and blunt objects. His solution to most problems is to punch it, which makes him so comfortingly predictable.
Hulk. Smash.
Yet, Carl can be creative and very clever at times. Most importantly, Carl doesn't like to play other people's games. If the dungeon wants him to do a thing, he will try to do the opposite. And since the dungeon is trying to kill people, Carl will try to save them.
What a man.
Now, full confession here, I genuinely love Carl. I just love a huge, muscular, over-the-top, masculine chat of a man who wants to protect people. Because sometimes, I want to be represented too. I'm also not wearing pants. I make me laugh. Anyway, while Carl might be a deep but straightforward character, Donut, on the other hand, is anything but that. She's very complex, she's young, she's immature, but also very intelligent. Her charisma is off the charts, so she's great at making friends and charming people. She's very likable. Yet in many ways, Donut is still like a child, and she can be overwhelmed by the darkness and the cruelty of the dungeon. So she's full of contradictions, temperamental and moody. Yes, like a cat. Now, Carl and Donut are the main two, but there are so many side characters in this one. Like, this series is packed full of them. Every reader has a favorite side character. Mine is Pony. Or Quasar. But let me just mention 3, okay? Mordecai is the guild master, so he lives in the dungeon and coaches crawlers on how to play better in order to make the show more entertaining. Mordecai is the smartest and most cynical character of them all, because he has a dark past and he hates the dungeon more than anyone.
Ah, a complicated backstory.
Prepotente is a goat, and he's also the goat. Now, he does come a little bit later in the series, but he's my favorite, because he's very much Carl's frenemy. Oh, I just love a good frenemy plotline. We don't get enough of them in literature. It's such a great dynamic.
More!
But anyway, Prepotente may be a goat, but he's so intelligent. He speaks in a pompous British accent, and he cannot stand Carl's unsophisticated and clumsy approach to life, and he hates the fact that it keeps working for some reason, and these two just annoy the hell out of each other.
That borders on the imbecilic.
And third, this might be an odd choice to focus on, but Lucia Ma is a crawler with 2 pet dogs, and she quickly becomes one of the strongest and most popular crawlers. She's also a vicious killer who has murdered many other human beings who get in her way. She's violent and mentally unstable and scary.
Where do I sign?
I need to mention her because you need to know that other crawlers are often the biggest danger. Remember, this story is a literal post-apocalyptic world, so think like The Walking Dead, where the zombies aren't half as dangerous as the other people. People are desperate and violent. Now, if I had to level any criticism on the characters here, it would be that there are just so damn many of them. A lot of them can't get development because there just isn't time. Many of them are one-note characters who are just a funny gimmick in the dungeon. And by book 7, well, I don't mind admitting this, it was becoming harder to keep track of them all. So there we go. I love the series, but I'm still being objective. You happy now? Okay, so what actually happens in these books? Well, I'm going to keep this spoiler free, and I'm going to outline 3 types of plots that you will see across this series. Plot number 1 is simply play the game. Carl and Donut must figure out what the dungeon wants them to do and then play along. Kill the monsters, level up, interact with these scripted quest storylines. And most of all, be entertaining.
Killing us quickly
wouldn't be entertainment.
This is where we see the absolute sadism of the dungeon, but also we see all the creative, original concepts. This plotline is constantly changing, not just level to level, but almost scene by scene. The goalposts are constantly moving. Remember, the dungeon is actively trying to kill them. Sometimes they have no choice but to still play along, but only sometimes. Plot number 2, fight back. Carl and Donut use any chance they get to fight back against the dungeon itself and the people who run it. Bend the rules and break the rules. This is definitely the plotline that's the most satisfying to watch.
Now that's the good stuff.
This plotline also requires them to be so clever. They have to think outside the box and manipulate events. Find any option that will make the game designers look bad. Like the Hunger Games, they need to find those berries. Know what I'm saying? And plot 3 is just the outside world. There is lots of politics in the wider universe. We see glimpses of that through Carl and Donut's handler, Zev, or the talk show host, Odetta. Many different corporations or governments have a role in running the dungeon, and all of them want it to work a certain way. It's possible that Carl and Donut can manipulate events to play one side against the other. Now the important question, do you want to commit to reading all 7 of these books and beyond? Well, you should know that the series changes quite a bit from book 1 to book 7. It always remains a funny satire that's focused on characters, but there is a lot of progression. First, each book is a different level in the dungeon, so the situation and setting changes for every book, even though the overall world and vibe stays the same. So each level has a new gimmick, which I won't share. So each book tends to start with several chapters of exploration that ground us in this new place, so it's constantly changing and it keeps it fresh. Second, our characters grow in power. This is what I think is the biggest change, because in the early books, they start out as desperate survivors with barely the clothes on their back, if they've even got that. But as the series progresses, they end up being incredibly powerful, like superheroes or demigods. Just like, look how ripped Carl gets in the later books. Our heroes go from desperate survivors in a post-apocalyptic horror scene to literally becoming the Doomslayer rampaging his way through hell. So the books change a lot in feeling. People often say they enjoy the later books more, and I suspect a lot of that is because we just like seeing our favorite characters grow more competent and powerful.
Can't believe my babies are growing up.
Third, there is a lot of carryover plot lines. A lot of these are interpersonal drama between the characters. There's a lot of backstories for different characters that are slowly revealed. And some dungeon quest lines carry across multiple books and multiple levels. So even though each book is a different level in the dungeon, they're not just loosely connected standalone stories. It does flow like a true series. Fourth, the books get a lot longer. Whew. Book 1 is about 450 pages, depending on which edition you pick up, but Book 7 is about 800 pages, nearly double the length. So that's a pretty big difference. The early books are really easy reading and accessible, and I think the later books start requiring some bigger reading muscles.
Check out my pecs.
Fifth and finally, the game itself becomes a lot more complicated. This is another big one. By the later books, there are so many classes and power-ups and spells and magic items and abilities and numbers and stats to keep track of. Whoa. I will freely admit I struggled a little bit here. In the early books, I kept track of all the details. Later, I often found myself just letting the details wash over me a bit.
I let the pile take me.
Now, to be clear, this is not a problem. It should do this. It's a LitRPG. That's part of the genre. It's supposed to go deeper into the game, but I admit this will appeal to some people more than others. This series is famous for having some of the best audiobooks on the market. And I read this whole series as audiobooks, which is why they're printed covers today. But I completely agree. These are top-tier audiobooks.
Oh, this isn't real!
So how good are these audiobooks? Well, let me put it this way. I normally listen to audiobooks while working out, and I enjoyed these so much that I found myself hitting the gym more often and doing longer sessions just so I could keep listening. So I guess you could say I love Dungeon Crawler Carl this much. I'm exaggerating, of course. In reality, I just injured myself a lot and spent weeks in recovery, so I blame Matt Dinnerman. Right? But what makes these audiobooks so good? Well, the big one is voice acting. Ugh. I have talked about this at length in another video where I discussed how I made my own audiobooks, because people need to understand the huge difference between a good actor and a voice actor who can do a range of voices.
That is totally different.
So Jeff Hayes is a brilliant narrator because he has an extremely flexible voice that makes each character sound unique. He's especially great at voicing women and making them sound like real women, not just a man trying to sound like a woman. It's so well done. I hear people say all the time that they genuinely thought that there was two narrators, a man and a woman. And second, the audiobooks have the occasional bit of sound effects and clever editing. So a character might mumble, and then there's a second track of actual mumbling in the background. Or there's someone's laughing underneath a character's angry rant, and it's just really fun because most audiobooks only have one track. The extra layering adds a lot. And third, the audiobooks have these hilarious advertisements at the end of each one. And it's clearly a, come read the next book message, but they're written as if they are characters in the world itself talking about the next level in the dungeon. It's just a lot of fun. So first, our character Carl is an excellent depiction of masculinity. And yeah, he is a bit of a dumb brute at times. He's big and tough and doesn't talk about his emotions very much. And he's very, very grumpy. But he's also incredibly loyal and loves the people in his family, and he would take a bullet to protect them, and he's selfless and kind. And he just grows so much over the course of the series. And I just love this, as you can probably tell, because sometimes we get stories with strong women that have just made all the men really weak, and that's frustrating because that's not really equality. Your strength is not measured by how many people are weaker than you.
There's nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self.
Anyway, the story also has lots of women, and they are very well written. In fact, I've heard a lot of people saying that this is a book for men that women will like. And yeah, I think that's true, and for this reason, because there are just so many women, like Donut, Katia, Odetta, Zev, and Lucia. All of them get proper character development and agency. It's very well done. There's also incredible diversity in this story, with characters coming from all over the world into this dungeon. So they're not just all American, because other countries exist too. And not just as sources of oil.
Damn right.
But we see even more diversity when characters start taking on classes and changing roles and becoming different fantasy races within the dungeon. The humans now all come in different shapes and sizes, but they're all still human. They're all still from Earth. And so they all have that in common. Some characters even change their gender. Ooh.
Spooky, right?
There are a few queer characters clearly stated, but it rarely comes up in conversation. People aren't exactly going on dates in this dungeon. Now, the content warning is weird for this series because it's not that graphic, but still gory as hell. Sometimes there are literal fountains of blood and real meat grinder stuff, but it's absurd and over the top, so it's not actually upsetting. I hope that makes sense. It can be very, very dark at times. The story starts with the apocalypse, so definitely some mature content in this one. There's plenty of swearing, all the swear words pop up. It's not constant, but there are some characters in particular, like the magnificent Quasar, who have a real potty mouth. And there's lots of sexual references and fetishes, and it could be quite kinky at times. Yet there isn't any actual sex or smut on the page. Now, is the ending worth it? So, we are 7 books in as of April 2026, with book 8 coming out next month on the 12th of May. The author, Matt Dinnerman, has suggested that we will likely get 10 books in total, but he's also said he will write as many as are needed. So we're definitely getting near the end. So I can't confirm if the ending is worth it right now, but I can confirm that the series keeps getting better. I personally thought books 5, 6, 7 were my favorites. There's definitely a lot of pressure on the author these days to deliver the big finale, but personally, I have total faith in the guy that he's going to come through for us. And how much should you try? Guys, there is some debate on this one. I've heard a lot of people say that it wasn't until book 2 that they really got hooked. Others have said that it was the later books that finally made them love it. But personally, I loved this from chapter 1. I'm not even exaggerating. I picked it up and immediately knew I was going to love the series and read all 7. So while I acknowledge that there is some general debate in the book community, I'm going to say it loud and clear. I think Dungeon Crawler Carl is good from book 1. The very first outing is a great indication of the quality and tone of the series overall, so you can try book 1 and get a clear idea if the series is going to be right for you. But that's all from me. I hope this thorough review has helped you decide if you want to give this series a try. So, good luck and happy reading. And thank you for watching. So please... New achievement! You have watched an entire video by the book guy. The video was 35 minutes long and you watched it all. Wow! You clearly have nothing better to do with your life. That's just sad. Not as sad as the guy who made this. Did you know he read all 7 books, wrote a script, and researched this video, and paid a video editor too, all with painstaking attention to detail? What a waste of time! All he had to say was whether the books were good or bad. Your reward? You now get advertised to! The book guy wants you to subscribe so you'll hopefully waste time again on another video. And for what? For improving your media literacy? Who needs that? New achievement! Did you know that the book guy is also an author? Wait, you didn't do anything to earn this achievement? Who cares? You now get to hear about the Immortal Investigations, an urban fantasy series which the book guy thinks is just as funny as Dungeon Crawler Carl. He wishes. I didn't laugh at a single joke in this video, and his books are even worse. But hey, if you want the book guy to have money to feed his cats, you can also buy a t-shirt from his shop. Do you want the book guy's cats to starve? No? I didn't think so. Your reward? Nothing! In fact, you have to spend money if you want those books. That's the opposite of a reward. What a ripoff. New achievement! Check out all these other crawlers who support the book guy on Patreon. What a bunch of gullible suckers. All they get is the chance to vote on the book guy's content and his everlasting gratitude. Your reward? Nothing! Because that's all everlasting gratitude is good for. I tell you, you'd be better off shutting down YouTube altogether and reading a book instead. See ya!